My name is Klaudia Breslavets, and I lead a learning program in one of our IT business lines. The Speed Bumps program was something that I was involved with before this current assignment, and Scott Kellerman joined the team right after to be my backfill after I rotated to a different assignment. Our LinkedIn information is up here, so if you'd like to connect with us during the event, we'd love to share what we've gone through. But if you think of something after the event, happy to connect with you afterwards virtually. So just quick hands. Does the group know what a speed bump is? Okay, like 5 people, great. So a speed bump is a friction in your SDLC value stream, and it's a friction that is very large, and it's very difficult for teams to resolve it on their own. So it could be maybe like an approval process or a process that requires more than one team to get a value stream completed, and it usually crosses many different organizations. So it could cross security or compliance or your operations group or your tech group, et cetera. And so for us, as we're going through our DevSecOps journey, we noticed that all of these frictions or speed bumps were starting to surface. Our agenda for today is fourfold. So we'll share with you context about our organization, about Vanguard, our IT group, and our transformation. We'll share with you an analogy, and we'll be a little bit like high level there. And that's deliberate so that the group has a framework and an idea to take back when you go back to work. We'll get into our experience report, and we'll get a little more tactical. So specifically, what did we do with a speed bump, a federal level speed bump, a friction point to resolve it? And this is like a recipe that you can take away and use for your own speed bumps. And then we'll wrap up with key takeaways.
All right. Well, thank you, Klaudia. So first, we wanted to take a moment to orient you towards the organization we work for, so you can kind of get a feel for the size and scale and the complexity of the federal level problems that we're dealing with. So we work for Vanguard. Vanguard is a financial services company. It was founded in May of 1975. So in that time period, the organization has developed a very strong culture. One of the pretty cool aspects about the culture is we have this whole nautical theme going on. So that nautical theme can be seen in the company logo, which is a big sailing ship. It can be seen whenever we get hungry and we go down to eat in the cafeteria, which we call galleys, much like you would on a ship. Additionally, it can also be seen when we are referring to our fellow employees, whom we call crew members. Again, just like you're on a ship. Speaking of crew members, Vanguard has over 17,000 crew members worldwide. So bottom line here is hey, this is a big organization, it's established, and it's not really a startup or greenfield. So let's take a minute and dive down now into the technology division of the organization. So the technology division has over 10 different subdivisions. Many of these subdivisions are aligned to different, business products or lines of business. Others are shared service IT groups, platform owning things that are core enabling functions of the different technology teams. So because there's so many different subdivision groups, and they all have a lot of autonomy and different needs, they sometimes all act like individual companies unto themselves, thus creating a little bit more complexity to deal with at an enterprise scale. So across the subdivisions, we have over 4,000 IT or technology crew members. We have 4,000 crew members, 10 subdivisions, And that leads to a diverse amount of technology stacks, some more legacy and monolithic in nature, others much more modern, web services, microservices, CI/CD pipelines, cloud native, et cetera. All told, there's over 3,500 applications and growing rapidly. So where are we in our DevSecOps transformation? Our Agile transformation we started about 10 years ago or so. So at that time, I think it was around 2008 maybe, we decided that we wanted to start building Scrum teams and adopting Agile practices and procedures. So along our journey, our leaders actually recommended that we all read this book called The Founder's Mentality by Chris Zook. Has anybody out there read Founder's Mentality by curiosity? All right, we've got a couple people. So for those of you who haven't, highly recommend this book. Again, it's called The Founder's Mentality by Chris Zook. So in Chris's book, he has one key problem that he's trying to solve. It's called, or he calls it, the growth paradox. The growth paradox states that as organizations grow, they do so in complexity as well. But the problem is complexity is the silent killer of growth. So in order to combat the growth paradox, Chris outlines 3 key themes for organizations to follow. The first theme is to bring an owner's mindset to every level of your business. This means to take ownership, fix the problem, and don't pass the buck and think somebody else is going to solve it. The second one is to have a bias towards action. What this means is that your default state of being should be to spring into action rather than to sit around and analyze things until maybe it grows into a bigger problem. Finally, one of the most important ones is to foster a frontline obsession. So a frontline obsession is like Jeff Bezos's customer obsession focus. It's taking that and applying it internally on your own frontline employees. As organizations scale and grow, they might add additional levels of management, thus creating somewhat of a natural disconnect between leadership and frontline and crew or employees. And by fostering that frontline obsession, you're able to bridge that gap just like, again, you would do in a customer-obsessed mindset. Finally, we ended up mapping our value streams, as Klaudia mentioned, and applying systems thinking the first way from the Phoenix project. And when we did that, we were able to identify these different speed bumps, and that brings us to here today. And Klaudia is actually going to talk to us now about how driving is like software delivery.
All right, so remember, we're up here right now. We're in this like strategic, theoretical perspective. So I'd like for the audience to think about the last time you were in a car, whether you were the driver, or maybe you were a passenger as in Uber, or maybe your Tesla drove you somewhere. For the next few responses, shout out what you love about driving. Speed, stick shift, control. Views. Okay, so having fun. Destination. Speed. Drive-throughs. We joked about cup holders. Movement. All right, 2 more. Acceleration. Freedom. Adaptive cruise control. I love it. Love it. Self-driving. Okay. All right, so let's talk about software delivery now. You might be leading software delivery teams, you might be a part of one, or maybe you really love apps and use software in your day-to-day. Think about what you love about software delivery. Shout that out. Instant feedback. Solving a problem. Creating value. Learn something new, new features. Innovating.
Automation.
Say that one more time.
Automation.
Automation. Happy customers. Creativity. What was that one? When things work. One from over here? I didn't hear that one. One more time. Bugs. You like bugs? I'll interpret that as a lack of bugs and safety. Enabling your customers to succeed.
Documentation, if you don't like documentation.
Self-talk. In the positive. All right.
The opportunity to come up with all sorts of crazy solutions to problems in the middle of the night when you're half asleep.
Creativity, autonomy, independence, okay? So within the themes that the group called out with driving and with software delivery, I heard things that were outside of these three, but what I was hoping to hear and what I'm going to tell you about is team autonomy and independence, safety and security, and deployment frequency or acceleration or speed. So what do these things have in common with software delivery and with driving? Well, if you're thinking about speed bumps and frictions and you think about autonomy, teams really love to be autonomous. They like to have the independence to be creative and to worry about solving tough problems so they could delight their customers, make them happy, be creative, and focus on that. They also want to be safe, and organizations really want their teams to be safe so that there's not lawsuits, security outages, unnecessary fines, bugs, so forth. Driving, we like to be safe too. We take that for granted, but there's a whole ecosystem with driving. There's rules and laws. In software, there's quality gates, key control, so forth. There's enforcement, etc. Deployment frequency, which, gotta be honest, when we were preparing, we were talking about deployment frequency as our favorite because it has to do with going fast. And I think if I was counting right, I heard speed most frequently in the room. So if you're a team that's delivering software, you're a DevOps team, DevSecOps team, and you care about autonomy and the independence to solve problems as quickly as you can, to be safe while you're doing it, and to go as fast as you can, that makes sense for your business and the problems you're solving for them. When you get frictions in that value stream, it gets really frustrating. And so this is the analogy that we really want to leave with you to think about so that when you go back to the office later this week or next week, you think about that as leaders or participants on teams who are dealing with this and to escalate it. So now I'm going to hand this over to Scott to drive this analogy a little bit further and add another dimension to it.
All right, so you're probably out there thinking, if you're going through a DevSecOps transformation at your organization, that if we go ahead and we focus on evolving our delivery teams into high-performing DevSecOps teams, if we focus on that, like a lot of the talks at the conference, right, have been, that we'd be well on our way. If we succeeded, we'd be well on our way to delivering customer and business value left and right. And you'd also probably be thinking that, hey, we would be able to meet our business outcomes and and we'd have really great engagement scores, et cetera, et cetera. All of that is true, but you're overlooking one key ingredient. And that's if your DevSecOps teams that you're building or highly performed Lamborghinis are still navigating or attempting to navigate an aging infrastructure that hasn't been updated along with your teams, with policies, processes, and procedures that also haven't been updated, well, you might end up driving a Lamborghini in conditions like that and on roads like that. The key takeaway here is that, yes, we do want to focus on evolving our delivery teams in the highly performing DevSecOps teams, but just as important, we need to focus on our core enabling functions within your organizations and modernize them along with your delivery teams. Now we're going to take a minute and we're going to shift gears and we're going to get a little more tactical and share with you an experience that we had trying to solve one of those enterprise level speed bumps at our organization.
So the problem that we were trying to solve is we were getting reports from our delivery teams that it was taking them weeks to get a new app set up. And this was a very counterintuitive thing for us because we are encouraging a lot of modern practices, a lot of modern architectures, one of which is creating microservices. And if you're creating microservices, you need the ability to generate new microservices rapidly and quickly. And so we were starting to see an anti-pattern behavior emerge where we were creating mini monoliths because of this value stream to get a new app set up. So in recognizing this problem, we knew that we had to tackle it. And this is an example of how DevSecOps and moving to DevSecOps, it surfaces friction points like this. For us, this particular speed bump involved a lot of different teams. There was many, many handoffs, maybe 7 different departments, and 6 weeks if somebody's manager was out of the office. Vanguard has tried to fix this several times, and the first time that we fixed it, we learned that from a culture perspective, in order to get traction on it, we couldn't just share the qualitative experience that teams were having with the pain they were experiencing, between ankle biting different people, different groups, to navigating the process. We had to show data behind it. And not only did we have to show the data, which teams were capturing via value streams, but we also needed to connect it to our vision and to our strategy. Because as you can imagine, and as Scott had shared, in an enterprise environment with many different groups and teams and a lot of complexity and a lot of initiatives underway, it's very difficult to get alignment from everyone to solve for this particular challenge. So connecting it to the vision and to our technology strategy was very effective. If we're trying to get to microservices and we have a process that takes us 6 weeks to get through in order to get set up, we're actually going against our technology and our strategy. And that really resonated. In getting support from our senior leadership to stand up a SWAT team, and a SWAT team for us is something that we created, and this included team members who are empowered from each of the organizations that shepherd a piece of the process in this value stream. So in our case, it was our platform teams, our operation teams, our security teams, our IAM teams, and we also included the customers, which is our delivery teams, because we wanted feedback from them and to share their voice and how they would like for the experience to work and how it actually works and the types of challenges that they face. Once the SWAT team was stood up, we empowered them to go after an outcome, which they all shared rather than different priorities that the groups had. And we created a culture for the team that enabled the problem solving. Going after that outcome, they were applying a lot of two-way empathy to both understand from their own perspective as a service team or a shared service group that is facilitating a piece of this process and shepherding it. And also from the client's perspective or a team. Seeing both sides was really effective. It's very easy if you're in a group that is siloed and has been set up this way to lose track that delivery teams can't go read service articles for every single piece of a value stream because your step isn't the only step in this value stream. There's more than one. In fact, there's 10, 20. And that would take a lot of educating to get through that. And likewise, from a delivery team perspective, the two-way empathy kicked in with understanding why does this step exist? Is it shepherding a compliance or key control step? And that education was lacking. So when our SWAT team got together and they really evaluated the value stream, they challenged it, they challenged it with asking a lot of questions. Why do these steps exist? Is this still a requirement in 2019? Or was this just something that evolved to be this way? And so in asking those questions, they could challenge, should this approval really exist? Does this team's manager really care that I'm requesting this? Is it adding value? Can this handoff be consolidated? Can I upskill my incoming team or outgoing team with what I'm actually doing so that we make it faster? And through doing this, they were able to come up with a recommendation both for a short-term and a long-term solution. So in the short term, their suggestion was to set up a concierge service. And this would be a durable team that actually owns this value stream instead of it being spread across many different groups. So as a concierge service, they would help teams get through this complex process. Now, having this in the short term, knowing how complex the process is, was okay as a stopgap. But in the long term, the team had a vision of creating a push-button start experience for delivery teams. They wanted for teams to be able to press a button for everything to be automated and to be set up. And so the recommendation there was to set up a durable team that would own this value stream and work on automating it. So this is the team. It's most of the team represented, and this is after a presentation. We went out to lunch, not in the galley, but at a restaurant. And the outcome that they were able to achieve is they took a 6-week process and they were able to get it down to 1 business day just by way of following those steps, challenging it, investigating, does the step reflect a requirement that's still relevant in 2019? Can it be consolidated? Can it be eliminated? Do we need this approval? There's a lot of waste that they discovered that we were able to get rid of. So that was both our high-level kind of strategic driving and software delivery and how it's related, and then our tactical. So our key takeaways, we have 3, and the first one is solving for the entire experience. So Scott showed the picture of the Lamborghinis. We talked about safety, independence, and team autonomy, along with speed. And you can't just solve for any one of those things, and going on a DevOps journey is going to surface these speed bumps for you. In our case, we learned that we can upskill our crew, we can use new tools and bring in the latest and greatest infrastructure and so forth, but eventually we need to glue it all together by way of the value stream and the process that we're looking at, and that is what teams are facing, and that creates the whole experience for your delivery team. The second is applying a founder's mentality. So Scott shared about the growth paradox, and Chris took's 3 takeaways to battling the growth paradox. That is an awesome book that really complements the whole IT Revolution library, and we definitely recommend reading it if you haven't already. And lastly is being mindful of your culture. I know that could be like a very trite thing to share, but for us it was really the night and day of what got traction on solving this federal level speed bump. Has anyone tried to solve problems like this before in their organizations? Okay, I saw a few hands. So for us, when we've tried it before, we've gone the route of current state, future state analysis, getting approvals, toll gates, et cetera, like very thorough approach. But ultimately, what really got us the win is to recognize that we need to tell the story in a certain way, which includes connecting it to our technology strategy and vision, showing data from value streams, and also sharing the qualitative experience from the teams. So with that, thank you everyone for your attention and for sticking around. It looks like we have 4 minutes left, so we can take maybe 2 questions. And again, our LinkedIns are here if you wanted to connect with us after. Yes, just wait for a mic. Yes, white shirt.
Thank you. Okay, maybe? Okay, thank you. My question is, and one of the reasons Riley wanted to come here was to ask how you have approached this typical problem of you hire new talent, they come in and they present you a whole bunch of good ideas, and they are met immediately with, well, that's not how we do things here, right? What has your experience been with that? And I think it translates into a lot of like, well, we've always done it this way. Mm-hmm. Has there been an experience about smoothing that or trying to get those groups to work with you?
So that's a great question. In our case, we actually seek and value experience from new hires and crew members as diverse experiences and perspectives that we have to incorporate, because Vanguard has a really great culture and people tend to stick around for a while. Like, people love working at Vanguard. So we value that, and when we bring in new crew, we recruit them to very strategic locations for deliberate purposes so that we can invigorate change and provide a fresh perspective. So I think it comes down to having an honest conversation about demonstrating that I've heard what you've shared, and also explaining where it fits in with where we're going, and then planning it out.
Yeah, I think just to build upon that, so part of going through a transformation is sending that message to your organization and delivering it in a thoughtful way that, we do need to change and evolve. We can't have the who moved our cheese paradox, and that message is out there and transparent right now in our organization. So I don't really think that we've come across that too much, because we're actively, like Klaudia said, seeking, because that message is out there, and our leaders are so transparent about, we have a technology vision and roadmap, and we're evolving. They know where we are, but they're very clear about where we want to get to, and our new hires coming into the organization can see that and are excited by, hey, where the organization's going because of the way that the vision has been articulated.
We have time for one more question.
Could you explain a little bit more what you mean by value stream and how your SWAT team contributed to that or made it more efficient?
Yeah, sure. Do you want to take that one?
Sure. So when we think about mapping value streams, we want to be thinking about it from a customer experience perspective. So in this case, our customers are your development teams, right? Your frontline, engineers. So treat your customers like you would, treat your frontline crew or employees like you would customers, and really build that two-way empathy that Klaudia had walked through, that we did in our experience report, and walk through them using personas as a technique that you can use to walk through the end-to-end holistic value stream that cross-cuts the organizational silos that you have set up. So we call this, it's essentially a developer journey, an engineering journey for any of these things. And that's what we mean when we say value stream. It's not just the pipeline. It would be your experience from I want to create a new application until that stuff is finally in your production environment. So that includes compliance controls, it includes the creation of a new application, test and build, et cetera. That's the experience, the holistic experience that your engineers are experiencing.
Okay. So we're out of time. Thank you again for joining us.